Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Haolonggood release. This one actually came out a little while ago, but it took longer to get to me because I actually had kind of almost put this figure on hold because I purchased quite a few different models from Lana Time Shop, and we tried to combine them all into one package, so I had to wait till everything had arrived before they could ship, and again, it made it a little cheaper when it comes to shipping some bigger items from them, so that also kind of gives you a little bit of a hint as far as some upcoming reviews here on the channel, some other recent or fairly recent releases that were a bit on the larger side I was able to get a hold of, actually from Haolonggood, some of them were, but for the most part, actually almost everything aside from, I think, one figure that I acquired from them recently came from Haolonggood. But you can see we have the Mamenchisaurus in 1/35th scale, and this is a huge box. And again, I expected it to be, especially with a 1/35th scale sauropod as large as the Mamenchisaurus. This time around, just like with the Allosaurus that had released from them not long ago, we had 3 different paint variants of this figure. I acquired 2 of the 3, and what I would say were my 2 favorite of the group. So you can see the box art features one of the darker variants. I think that's like the grayish version kind of looks like. And then, of course, we've got the species name, the scale, the Haolonggood logo. And then if we turn the box around, on the opposing side, we have the greenish variant here as far as the greenish color scheme goes. And then on top of that, if you look up here on the top of the box, we have a massive checklist of other figures from Haolonggood. And at this point, it's actually crazy to think about how many Haolonggood releases we have had in just the last few years. They have flooded us with figures, and I couldn't be happier about it, honestly, because they've been some of my favorite releases to come from anyone. But again, you can see tons of stuff now out on the market from Haolonggood. So let's pop both of these boxes open. I only have one here to show you guys as far as the box goes because the boxes are the same. So we'll pop the boxes open and bring in our massive Mamenchisaurus. So there are my Mamenchisaurus, both versions now out here and running amok on my review station. Alright, they're just standing there. They're not doing much, but you can see the 2 different color variants I chose, one of which is a dark, kind of brownish version, which honestly is my favorite overall. I just absolutely love the dark, and in my opinion, very realistic color scheme of that one. But we also have the greenish version here, which I am a big fan of as well. I really like greens on sauropods, so it's nice to have both of these 2 different color variants here in my collection. I'm considering grabbing the blue version as well, possibly, just to, be able to add to my collection. If I do, I could make a video on that one if you guys would like to see it as well. But again, these 2 are very, very nice looking here in person. Yet again, Haolonggood has done a great job on the figures, and especially when it comes to the sculpts, and giving me probably the single most impressive Mamenchisaurus model that I now have. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look, and we'll check them out from there. So beginning with my absolute favorite overall of all of the Mamenchisaurus that I've seen here from Haolonggood revealed, you can see the head sculpt here looks super nicely done, and on this one they've done a great job of applying a very nice dark wash, and you can see the dark wash highlighting the detail perfectly, darkening the dinosaur up and just giving it that large sauropod feel. You can also see, in classic Haolonggood fashion, we've got blue eyes with a black pupil, something they absolutely love doing. It's almost like their calling card at this point. I'm trying to move this around because it's kind of bumping into the light over here beside me. But you can also see the ears as well as the nostrils here for the dinosaur. We have a nice bit of color variation here in the face with some very slight kind of like reddish browns. You've got like a tan. You have a very dark brown moving over the top of the head. The mouth as well is highlighted nicely. It's also closed. And you can see that, again, dark wash at play right there. You can see a little bit more variation of color down there on the lower jaw. You can also see the eyes shining and glistening with the light hitting it really nicely, again, giving it that realistic eye shine appearance. As you begin to move down the neck of our massive Mamenchisaurus, you can see tons of skin wrinkles and skin folds here moving down. You can also see a striping pick up, kind of like some nice patterning moving along the back of the dinosaur, but there's an ever so slight addition of almost like a pinkish tone that sort of follows along the spinal column right there of the dinosaur. But you see like a black kind of striping and patterning through. It's almost really subtle with the way it's applied at this point in time. As you move down, you'll also notice a very strong dry brushing on the figure, which helps to give it kind of almost like a grayish sort of a look. And on top of that, you can see how it highlights all of the scale details, showing you how impressive the sculpt of this massive sauropod really is. Moving down along the underside, you can see the throat sculpted out. Also, again, it's been hit with that dry brushing, and you can see like a kind of like almost like a pinkish brown sort of tone here following along the underside of the sauropod as well. And then again, returning to the mixture of browns and grays up here on this side, and then again transitioning to a different variation of color as you lead up here to the top, because we have a really light gray, almost the same tone that seems to have been used to dry brush the detail out, but it kind of overtakes the spinal column and lightens the entire top of the dinosaur up, which is really cool. Definitely a really nice addition as far as the paintwork goes. We continue to have that patterning, and again, it's not really seeming like there's any rhyme or reason to the way it's applied. It's just kind of like sporadically placed all through the course of the neck as you move down. Obviously, the neck of our sauropod is growing in size as we lead closer to the body. And then right here, as you get to the bottom of the neck, look at the mountain of skin wrinkles and skin folds down here. Also, the nice subtle variations of color applied in that area. And again, that dry brushing continues to make all of the scale detail pop and jump off of the sculpt quite nicely. Moving along the back, you can see again more of that patterning. It actually looks like, rather than just a black, which it kind of appeared to start out as, it's a mixture of black and dark browns at this point. But you can see again, we continue to have that lighter tone moving along the top of the dinosaur. As you move down here into the side, you can see the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin, making this sauropod look absolutely as strong as it gets, just massive. As you lead down, you can see the skin stretching off of the stomach right there, leading into the leg of the sauropod, moving down again. You also see really subtle additions of that patterning moving through, giving it a very realistic paint job, I would say. As you lead down into the foot sculpt darkens to a black, it looks like. Again, you can see the nail over here, if my camera would focus on it. Seems to be painted with like a dark brown, also has a nice shiny gloss coat to it, giving it a nice realistic shine. As far as the nails go, you can see the elbow back here in the back of the front leg. And then as you lead up, you can see a little bit of a lightening here to the coloration of the stomach. Again, we have that same similar kind of like light gray you see up on the top used to lighten the stomach region, but also more of the almost like pinkish brown tones that you see on the underside of the dinosaur as you move down. You've got more skin wrinkles here following along down here along the underside of the stomach. More of the detail, again, dry brushed out here on the underside. I think I almost would have preferred, rather than the dry brushing here on the underside, more of like a dark wash down here rather than the dry brushing. I think the dry brushing looks excellent up here. It really highlights the detail beautifully. But down here, I feel like maybe more of like a wash might have looked a little bit better, but it still looks fairly decent down there. And then continuing to move back here into the back of the stomach leading into the thigh, you can see a few more skin wrinkles. And again, the way that the skin is reacting to the movement of the leg leading down the thigh, you can see the muscle definition. You can also see the hip bone right here. And again, just really subtle variations to the color and additions to the paintwork right there that looks really nice. There's a good bit of depth to the paint job of this, and that's something that's pretty common from Haolonggood. I think their paint jobs are some of the best out there. As you lead down, you've got some more skin wrinkles in the back of the leg as well as the knee right here in the front of the leg, and then you move down here into the rear foot sculpt. You could see some really nice tensing in the leg as the dinosaur is walking along and taking that step. You can also see the nails again sculpted out and painted with the same tone we had seen on the front leg. And then as you lead up, you've got a few more skin wrinkles back here behind the thigh, again continuing to show the motion and movement of the dinosaur. You've also got some osteoderms up here on the top of the dinosaur, as well as a small area of ridges kind of moving along the spinal column before they quickly disappear. And then you can see more of that patterning as you move out, more of the dry brushing, more variation of color, as well as a really nice tail sculpt as you lead out. You've got a really nice curve, and then you lead out here to that, I would say, almost classic ending to the tail of a Mamenchisaurus. And you can also see we have an orangish tone that appears at the end of the tail for a little bit of flashiness. As you move along the underside, you can again see how the detail is all brought out with that light dry brushing. You can also see a cloaca present right there. Kind of has like that dry brushing as well as a dark wash applied. I think maybe they could have just stuck with the dark wash and it would have been fine, but the dry brushing does again bring the detail out at least. Then looking at the head on the opposing side, again, you can see all the same sort of color variation we had just seen on the initial side. Really nice, precise paintwork over there. We lead down the course of the neck. The dinosaur is turning its head slightly away from us on this side, so you can see, I think, a little more stretching to the skin as you move down through the course of the neck on this side. And again, you're going to see mostly the same thing, because when it comes to a sauropod, you don't usually expect to see too much of an action scene. So you can see the legs are moving closer here on this side to each other compared to further away from each other on the opposing side. Again, just basically showing the walking motion of this massive sauropod. And again, at a size like this, with a dinosaur like this, it's not going to have much that's going to bother it. So I don't think it needs to look like, panicked or worried or anything. So it just basically looks like it's nice, calmly walking along. Again, everything looks really, really well done on both sides. Absolutely one of the best Mamenchisaurus models I've ever seen. And then again, we've got the greenish variant. Now the sculpt is the same on this as it was for the first version we had taken a look at, so we really only need to take a look at the coloration. And what you can see here in the face, you've got like that light tone, and then you've got like a darker variation of like an orangish brown kind of leading in, and then you have a darker brown here kind of running along the top and center of the head. Again, we have the dark wash here at play in the face, highlighting the detail quite nicely. You've got the blue eyes, again, as per usual, with the black pupil, again sporting that nice gloss coat. The ear is nicely highlighted with the dark wash as well. But as you lead back, just like with the other one, we transition to a different tone of color, this time a greenish tone moving back. And we still have the same kind of patterning picking up, but we actually have a little extra with this one, because we have like a light gray that kind of sporadically shows up as you move through the course of the body. On top of that, you also have a really cool orangish tone moving along the top of the dinosaur, which looks really nice and plays off of the greens quite nicely. And then as you move down to the underside, you again have some lighter variations of like browns, all brought out again with a dry brushing, just like we saw on the first version. And again, that dry brush is pretty heavy through a large amount of the figure. And you can again see more of that light tone randomly picking up. It's a little bit bigger right there in that spot. But again, you also have that darker tone kind of patterning through, but it's really subtle with the way it's applied. Like, it's not super intense or incredibly highly visible. Once you move down here into the body, though, you continue to see again the orange moving along the back, the patterning moving along the back, but you don't really see much in the way of the patterning down here on the sides, which I think looks a little different compared to the first version we had taken a look at. Down here, we basically have the greens as well as the dry brushing. You also have some slight variation of color, like right here in this kind of almost crevice beside the shoulder blade. You can see a little variation of color added there. As you move down, you can kind of see like the pinkish or orangish browns moving down along the back of the leg, a little darker variations of color moving through the front of the leg, also meshing with the greenish tones. Again, you've got like a brownish tone for the foot. The nail again painted out right there looks quite nice. Moving along the underside, again, you've got some nice variation of color. I can definitely see the dark wash here on the underside of this one as well. And again, the underside really highlighted with that dry brushing. I think it actually looks a little better when it comes to the dry brushing on this one compared to the darker version. But as you move back, you see pretty much the same sort of coloration moving down, but you can see some of that patterning moving through this leg. You don't really see that much in the first leg, a little bit, but I think you can see it a little more back here. But I really love the way that they've just added so much paintwork to this in such a really nice, subtle way, just like we saw in the first version, but it's a little more obvious on this version. Again, same colors as you lead down into the foot sculpt, same paint for the nails. You've got that dry brushing highlighting the detail the entire way down. You can really see how muscular the leg is over here. And then up here, you actually see the orange taper away for a moment, transition to a reddish tone following along those ridges, but then it disappears entirely as you lead out into the tail. And then you again have more of that light tone kind of picking up. It's actually like a light grayish blue. You have more of the dark tone really subtly applied. Again, the same type of coloration for the underside as you lead out toward the tip of the tail. And just like the other one, we transition to an orange out there for the tip of the tail. And then if you look at the opposing side, again, Pretty much the same thing over here as we had seen on the first side. You've got all the same type of patterning and paintwork. It looks really, really cool. Again, Haolonggood just knocking it out of the park when it comes to their paintwork and giving us just an absolutely spectacular paint variant for this unbelievably impressive Mamenchisaurus. Definitely one of their best releases so far. As far as a size goes, for a length from the snout to the tail, a little bit over, just like a hair over 26 inches or around 66 centimeters, maybe a little tiny bit over 66 centimeters. But to the top of the neck of our Mamenchisaurus, you are looking at 9 3/4 inches or just a little bit under 25 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is a Mamenchisaurus in front of and behind Mr. Papo T-Rex, as well as the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being stepping in here for a comparison next to our Mamenchisaurus. And as you can see, it is a very large sauropod figure. It's so nice, so refreshing to have 1/35th scale sauropod models and a company that isn't afraid to release them here with these incredible Mamenchisaurus. And then when it comes to the next and most obvious comparison, I would think we have the Haolonggood Alamosaurus next to the Haolonggood Mamenchisaurus, and you can see definitely a very large sauropod either way. Obviously, it's not quite up to the size or body mass or anything of the Alamosaurus, but it is still extremely impressive in size and very clearly a whole lot longer than our Alamosaurus is, because the Mamenchisaurus has a little bit of a different positioning and a super, super long neck, but you can very clearly see, again, each are, I would say, equally impressive in the size department. Then when it comes to some comparisons with some other Mamenchisaurus models that are out on the market, currently we have the PNSO version. This is the more recently released version of the Mamenchisaurus from PNSO, which you can see is a whole lot smaller than the Haolonggood version. We've also got the older release of the Mamenchisaurus from PNSO as well next to the Haolonggood version, which yet again, not really much in the way of a comparison here. We've also got the Collect Day version of the Mamenchisaurus next to the Haolonggood version, still nowhere near the size of the Haolonggood release. We've also got the drastically smaller version from Mojo Fun of their Mamenchisaurus. Again, no competition whatsoever for the Haolonggood release. And then for one random Haolonggood comparison, we also have their Ouranosaurus next to the Mamenchisaurus, just to continue to give you one more idea as far as the size, one final idea as far as the size of this very large sauropod model. So this brand new Haolonggood Mamenchisaurus is absolutely awesome, honestly. The sculpt on this is gorgeous. It really is. I expected no less. Haolonggood always delivers when it comes to their sculpts and the fine detail on them and just how good they always look. They're really good at giving you a very highly detailed model. So if you're ever considering ordering something from Haolonggood, don't hold back. Don't worry about how good it's going to look when it comes to the detail or anything like that in person, because you are going to get an exceptional model when it comes to the sculpt, and you can definitely see that here with this version of the Mamenchisaurus. Again, it's super, super cool to have such massive sauropod models like this out on the market, something nobody else is doing currently. I mean, once in a while you'll get a sauropod from somebody else, but you very, very few and far between get one of this size. So it's super cool that Haolonggood is doing this. On top of that, we have incredible paintwork on both of them. They all look very realistic, very lifelike, very natural overall, and they've delivered a nice paint job with many different variations of color, really nice subtle patterning throughout, and a nice dry brushing over top as well to really highlight the detail. Haolonggood's paint jobs are some of the best in the entire dinosaur model business, I would say, so it's very nice to see, again, a really beautiful paint job for these sauropod figures as well. And again, the fact that you've got 3 different paint variants gives you some very obvious choices you could make as far as collecting one that you really like as far as the colors go, or grabbing all 3. That's really up to you. As I said, I may end up grabbing the blue version as well and adding that to my collection at some point. Not too sure how realistic or natural a blue will look on a sauropod, but And, you know, from the images and stuff that I've seen of it, it looked pretty nice. But overall, again, super, super cool figures. If you are interested in grabbing them for yourself, make sure you check the links that I will include in the description to purchase them from Lana Time Shop, because that is exactly where I purchased mine. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.